Good. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. I feel like this is like a post-COVID record turnout. McKinley Village, full house.
It's the presenter.
What's that?
It's the presenter. We've got a
It
guest
is the
speaker.
presenter. I don't know. Cookies are good. We got snacks. For all the people watching online, I want you to know how much you're missing out. Love that you're watching, but come join us in person. It's a lot more fun that way. Thanks everybody that did come, because it does feel much more like a public meeting when we have the public here face to face with us and not just like working in the background on the Zoom or whatever it is. So, love having people here, even better. You want to get up and tell us what you're thinking. Because I feel like there's been a distinct lack of that, the last couple of years since we went into it. So just people speaking out at the public meetings, is always good. So, keep your mind, that's why we're here. But that being said, the public hearing itself, is not happening because we don't have any ordinances on the agenda. But we will have a time for public comment in just a minute. But before that, we will start the regular meeting with, the pledge of allegiance. If Mayor Knoll will be going.
I would, and I'm gonna unfurl the flag and then we can. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Double duty there, much appreciated. And then I would ask, our person for the evening, call the roll.
Dominic Canali,
Here.
Walter Warner,
Here.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Here.
David Alexander,
Here.
Richard Hammond,
Here.
Krista Zappone,
Here.
Jared Zimmerman.
Here.
They're all in attendance.
And I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Second. Moved by Mr. Alexander, seconded. Any discussion or additions, changes? Anyone opposed to approve? Hearing none, call that unanimous. Bring us to communications and appearances. And, we have Ms. Laura Simon with us here tonight. Thank you for joining us. Oh, my goodness. I apologize. I'm a little crazy with my check marks. We do have public comment as such promised, so please, if you would like to make a public comment, just stand up and state your name and limit comments to about 3 minutes per person. Steve Jones,
I'm concerned about tourism and what happened with the Park Service and everything else, and the borough's ability to continue to fund things the way they are. So I think we need to move forward with land disposal to help make up for some of that, what I anticipate, at least for the next 3 or 4 years, a considerable decrease in tourism. I haven't seen anything within the group. There are 3 proposed subdivisions on the docket right now. This is in the yellow, the land that is either under ownership by the borough or the land. So this little blue square right here, you own the rest of it in the yellow is managed in the store. Even though the state says they never did. In 1979, I was wondering what this little Jeep was running around with the brewery on top of it. And what they were doing is soil survey for that area. A little larger than what the borough has, but it encompasses all of the borough land. So we don't need to do that to develop. We already have a soil survey. which is a big step in the right direction. Long Haul won't give me the printed copy of it because it was paid for by the state. State says they never did. We know that. I've identified all the survey markers, it's been surveyed. Except one, and no reason I didn't go dig it out of the snow is because I knew where it was. And there was no point in after you identified every section and quarter section monument. There's getting the last one. But anyway, beautiful land. The village used subdivision proposal, is just right up here on the building, visible from here. Not visible from the highway, high quality land. And created it to be sold as if it were high quality land. And with the proper restrictions to keep people from buying it, whether they're into short-term rentals and or business. That's the quality. And that could go a long ways towards helping the girl meet the things that they would like to do. And the other subdivisions are the same way. We're not competing with the guy that has 10 acres and wants to divide it into 4 lots and make it a little subdivision. So we would come with power of roads. Changes the dynamics of what a subdivision should look like. This was done because what the state proposed there was a 6,000 acre, 1,500 lot subdivision going all the way to Virginia. We stopped that, 47 persons. But we didn't just stop it. We said, we don't want that kind of development. What we would like is design what is Village View and propose 50 lots in there, and they did 47 lots. But this lot is one of the ones that we asked them to do, is set aside this 5 acres for community hall and fire department. And then they did. And the borough transferred the ownership to that, of this property, to the nonprofit that we set up at that time. So, we can have an impact. And, Village View has been one of the most successful state subdivisions there is, because there was a little forethought into what the community needed, where some good land was, and, how to develop it. Well, the 6 townships that go that direction offer that same ability and opportunity. And I encourage the borough through the planning commission and the assembly to take a serious look at that to make up for some of the shortfalls that I personally anticipate having. That's my feeling. Sure.
Is, so the property you're talking about is the village, what it's gonna be the, what we have the proposals, or is this a different piece of property?
No, the first little township section is what the present proposal is in.
Okay,
And, it's been surveyed, you have management authority on it. The quarter section that's further north has bad access right now.
Right.
This would offer a first step into getting good access into that. You actually own that, or the borough owns that. And that could be developed, this as well. It's got a lot of, glacial eskers and stuff with little potholes. You could have a subdivision, a wonderful subdivision that had 2 or 3 lots here, 2 here, 4 over there. And then as you go out towards the end, there are areas where you could do maybe 6, 7, 8 in a row. So, there's money to be made here And I would encourage the borough to do that, except I would like to see it done well. Not sell a bunch of junk land that people are gonna have problems with. Sell the good stuff, make money out of it. Anyway, that's my speech.
Thanks for the legwork.
The state, the kind of the survey that they did is different than the soil test, like this,
The soil test, this is a soil test.
yeah. But they're kind of ignoring that they did that, but like the actual surveys and stuff like that in terms of how that affects being able to complete our entitlements to that area.
It's been surveyed, but the state says you need to survey it. It's already been surveyed by the feds.
Okay,
So that survey is a legal survey. It actually has precedence over the state surveys.
Yeah.
So you don't need to resurvey it. No, it's already been done. I don't have the survey number off the top of my head, but I know where there's 20 or so monuments, big brass ones, that have that survey stamped into the top. And that survey is on file with the state recorder's office.
okay, it would be, the state would have it as well. We don't necessarily need to track down the one last person at BLM to,
No,
Yeah.
the state.
There's one left.
yeah,
BLM was before that.
yeah,
This is state.
the state did that survey,
They did the survey.
okay.
So, same surveyor did the federal. He went from one agency to another one, same guy.
Yeah.
Dave Potts. Lived out at, Goldman.
Are you familiar with the native allotment out there as well?
No native allotment, the borough owns that quarter section now. It was rejected.
It was rejected.
He couldn't find it, so. They didn't believe that he actually spent all his time there. It's got a long paper trail. Of course, you have to have a permission now to access that paper trail with BLM, but it's there.
Any other public comments? We did already approve the agenda.
Mhm.
Any go backs since I went over? Okay, so we will now go on to our communication, and thank you for joining us, Ms. Simon.
Yeah, thank you very much. For the record, my name is Lorelei Simon. I'm the Vice President of External Affairs for Yusuf Valley Coal Mine. I'm coming to see you guys tonight to present a recent report completed by the McKinley Group. On your desks, you have this, which is the executive summary of the larger printed report. Also on the back of the executive summary, you'll see a QR code. So if you would rather view the document online rather than printed, you can view it there, and I'm happy to take the other reports back with me, so no pressure. If you don't want the bigger report. And certainly for those members online, or for the community members online, you can also find this report on our website, yusufvalley.com. Was that, may I share my screen? All right. That's good, everybody? Oops. Trying to, there, it is mine. Okay, well, as most of you know, Healy is home to Alaska's one and only coal mine. We provide fuel to the 6 coal-fired power plants in interior Alaska. The company is still owned and operated by the Yusuf Valley family, celebrating 82 years of business this year. You can see the slide here, Emil Yusuf Valley, his son Joe, and then Joe Jr. is our current president and my boss. Of course, usually I give these presentations to like the legislature or something like that. So it's more fun to be here in our hometown because you probably know all of the people that are going to be in these slides, and you also know a lot more about the coal mine than folks down in Juneau. But we're very proud of our employees. I think the one on this slide that is the most meaningful to me is that 34% of our employees are either second, third, or fourth generation. And I think that's just an incredible testament about the quality and the character of the Eust Valley family and how they run the company, because you wouldn't tell your daughter, granddaughter, or great granddaughter to work for a company that you work for unless you were treated well, provided safe working conditions, compensated appropriately. So, I've been with the company for 15 years now, and it certainly has been a real blessing to my family, and I plan to stay until I retire. We have about 105 year-round jobs at the coal mine. We provide almost $15 million in direct salaries and wages. The average wage in the mining industry is around $120,000 a year. I like to use this figure as an example of this is slope money without having to be on the slope. You can live and work in your hometown. You can still volunteer at your kid's school. You can still be home with your family every night. And of course, an important fact to the Denali Borough is that we're the largest year-round private sector employer. Of course, the tourism industry, comes in the summer and they provide a lot of temporary jobs, but for year-round stable jobs, Eust Valley is the largest private sector. You'll hear us talk about safety often. This is our absolute foundation, our primary foundation in the company. What we consider to be the most important is making sure that our employees are safe. We implemented a safety system at the coal mine a number of years ago called called Core Safety, certified by the National Mining Association. And then from that, we created an internal system called Everyday Safety at home, at work, at play. And what we try to do with that is encourage our employees to take what they know about safety professionally and take that into the community, take it home with their families. And it's everything from making sure that, you change your batteries and your smoke alarms regularly, as well as making sure that you're wearing proper safety gear when you're out doing fun things like skiing or snow machining. Our safety record today is 336 days. Our next milestone will be in April 10th. That'll be our 1 full year without a lost time accident. And we always have usually it's a fun shop party. You guys have been to community events at the coal mine before, where we clear out all the big trucks and equipment and fire up the barbecue and celebrate as a team that we've been able to accomplish the safety milestone. We produce about 1 million tons a year. That stays in state. We haven't exported out of the Seward terminal since 2016. As I said before, there's 6 coal-fired power plants in the interior, 2 of them right here in Healy. The area that we're mining at this time is called Jumbo Dome, and that's the new mining area that we moved into. Gosh, it's probably been 10 years now. And there's 80 million tons of proven reserves right in that area. So at 1 million tons a year, we have several decades left of coal. And that's the point that I really like to use when I'm presenting to the legislature, as everyone's talking about the natural gas shortage in Cook Inlet and what are we going to do? And I always like to say, well, we are here to help. We have 400 years of proven reserves in our lease boundary. We already have employees, existing infrastructure, we're on the road system, we're on the rail system. So please allow us to help you. This is a list of the 6 coal-fired power plants in the interior. 45% of the interior's energy comes from coal, and that includes the military bases. So when we're talking about, what could we do in the absence of coal? The answer really is nothing. There is no readily available alternative to the coal fleet in the interior. So it's very important that policymakers and power brokers remember how important the coal fleet is to the interior. So the basic premise of the report that I'm talking about tonight asks the question, if coal weren't an option, what would that mean? And the McKinley Group, it's an economic research firm. They have offices statewide, but they're primarily based in Anchorage. They explain that it would be an additional $273 million per year to the interior if they had to switch to a different alternative. Now, again, natural gas is not readily available at the large scale. There's no pipeline right now. So they, you know, you can look at the graph on the bottom here where it breaks down the different fuel sources and the different plants used. And that's how they're getting to the 273 million. But you also look at the economic impacts of coal, not just on rates, but also that we spent close to $30 million. Our little company, our family-owned company, spent close to $30 million in Alaska in 2023 in support of our mining operation. So think about all of those vendors, also, you know, Alaskan-owned companies that help us support our mining operation. And then statewide, it's almost $55 million a year in wages and benefits for the 568 jobs. So the number I gave you earlier, about $15 million, that's just Used Valley Coal Mine wages, and the 100 employees, that's just Used Valley Coal Mine employees. But when you consider all of the direct, indirect, and induced jobs statewide, it's 568 jobs because we have a healthy coal industry in the state. Of course, military readiness and energy security is very important. You're talking again about the potential shortfall of natural gas coming out of Cook Inlet. We can keep 90 days of supply stockpiled at Fort Wainwright and Eielson, and that is an uninterruptible fuel source. If we can't get it there via rail, we can get it there via truck. And the railroad, of course, is an important part of our community as well, and coal accounts for 10% of their revenues. And 19% of the tonnage comes from hauling coal just to the power plants. So the, you know, tagline there, every coal car that rolls north on the tracks represents local jobs, energy security, and economic strength for the interior. As you all know, the Used Valley family is also very generous and takes their position in the community to heart. And this slide just represents some of the giving, the corporate giving that we do in the state. You know, education is such an important policy initiative statewide right now. It's pretty much all we're hearing on the news coming out of Juneau is them debating the education bills. And so I thought it was important to point out the different educational initiatives that we have at the coal mine. So certainly supporting scholarships and programs at the university. You know, the Used Valley family and the company has been a long supporter of UAF particularly, but also, you know, trickling down to preschool and the amount of support that we give to the Denali Preschool and Learning Center. And of course, at Tri-Valley High School, we do a lot of on-the-job training and internship programs. We have a lot of employees that spend time in the community volunteering as well, whether it's science fairs or engineering programs or, you know, hockey coaches, basketball coaches. So we are very proud of our employees as well, just wanting to be integrated in the community and give back. So just as a recap, you know, Alaska really is, or coal really is necessary for Alaska's energy picture. And while it's primarily important to the interior, it really affects the entire rail belt because that 177 megawatts of coal on the grid helps stabilize rates through the entire rail belt. So I'll just go back to, you know, coal is necessary, clean coal, oil and gas, and renewable energy. I always want to take the opportunity to say that Used Valley does believe that renewable energy projects are an important piece of the puzzle as well. And there's a lot of exciting innovation in the renewable energy space. While renewable energy at this time for our region could not supply baseload power, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you flip the switch and you can charge your computers and have lights and heat in your house. We still need fossil fuels for baseload power. We still need coal for that. However, renewable energy is an excellent source of supplemental power. And we are paying close attention to the different projects statewide that could be coming online soon. And we look forward to their success as well. So with that, I'm happy to take questions. And if none tonight, you know where to find me. I'm always happy to hear from you. Yes, sir.
So I was looking, a third of the coal is that you use It looks like to me about a third of it stays in Healy and the rest gets shipped.
That's about right, yeah,
And so that, and it all gets shipped by rail north, I guess.
that's correct.
And so it goes as far as, I'm just trying to understand how it works. It goes as far as Fairbanks and then gets trucked the remaining distance, or does the rail line go farther than that?
The railroad goes to both military bases, and Aurora Power Plant in downtown. The university, I believe it's, oh, I have to double check that now, I'm second
It
guessing.
must get trucked from there.
Yeah, I'll double check
Right.
that for you, yeah.
That makes sense. I just didn't know how far the rail went.
I'm pretty sure it's all rail. I don't think there's any house. Even university has further right across.
Oh, do they?
University.
Oh, yeah, you know, you're right, cause I've crossed there. Ah, cool. Alright. Thanks.
And I'll just wrap up by saying we would love to have you visit the coal mine. You know, we think the summer is the best time because we like to brag about our reclamation efforts and show you our reclamation success. So please, you know, if you have not done a tour of the coal mine, we would love to have you this summer and we can work around whatever schedules you would have.
It has been a long time. I did go as an assembly member, but it's been a minute, so.
Yeah,
I would,
I know.
I think it could be worthwhile for the assembly to come out for a field trip sometime.
Great.
We'll see if it works out with this summer or not, but.
yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to work with the clerk and get that organized. Thank you.
Once more of a comment, when we were in Juneau, I had several staffers at that reception. As soon as they heard that I worked for Golden Valley, the very first thing they said was, what are you doing to close down the power plants? And I said, why would we close down the power plants? And I appreciate the efforts of you and other people that are externally trying to, I guess, educate people about coal. I think there is a massive public misconception that burning coal today is the same as it was in, 1830 or 1870, whenever we were burning coal a lot, just, they picture big old black clouds of smoke, and it's not the same. The plants that we have nearly identical emissions to the natural gas plant. The EPA won't let us release stuff. So, the education that you do is important because people who are making rules that we have to live by, I don't think quite understand things very well sometimes. The second thing, did when Golden Valley was looking at closing Unit 2, did you ever come up with a number as to how many jobs at Usability that would affect?
At the time, we didn't anticipate that it would mean significant layoffs for us. We run a pretty lean machine anyway, and the fact that we would still need to supply coal to the other 5 power plants, it didn't look to us that we would have to do significant layoffs. Perhaps if, people were retiring, maybe we wouldn't fill those positions. But to be honest, we didn't think that was a reality that they were gonna shut Healy 2 anyway. Because you can't take 50 megawatts of baseload power off the grid and have nothing to backfill that. So we, kept our powder dry, and I know that Mr. Usabelli had many conversations with Mr. Burns, their president at the time. Now of course he has moved on, and Mr. Usabelli and Mr. Million keep in close contact. So, yeah, we kept our powder dry on that one, didn't think it was a reality. Yes, sir.
And then, I know that coal hasn't been shipped for a number of years. Just with whatever changes going on, globally or in DC, whatever it is, do you foresee the potential for that again? Or what is the kind of that look like?
Yeah, this is a tough one, to be honest, because this is where we do have conflict with the railroad in that shortly after we stopped exporting in 2016, and that's because the market tanked, right? There was a flood of cheap coal coming out of other places like Indonesia and Australia. One of our clients was in Chile. They nationalized their mine, so they didn't need our coal anymore. Korea implemented a sulfur tax, so they were taxing coal that had lower BTUs. But the problem was that our coal was ultra low in sulfur, but while it had lower BTUs, they were using our coal as a blend to help reduce their emissions. So they really shot themselves in the foot on that one. So a series of things, the strength of the US dollar, a series of things led to us stopping our exports at that time. Well, shortly thereafter, the railroad sold the coal cars out of state, and they shut down the Seward Coal Terminal, stuck it into cold storage. Well, it just, big hunk of iron sits there by the salt water and just continues to deteriorate. They have since completely taken it down, and they are going to use that space for another cruise ship dock. So there we had existing infrastructure. Now we don't. Port McKenzie is always a thought for us. It's an option. Of course, they need to finish that rail bed into Port McKenzie. We did a test shipment out of there, 2010 or 11, where we trucked coal from Healy and just used their loading facility, brought in a super Panamax size vessel into Cook Inlet in Upconnect Arm, which was really exciting. It was the largest vessel that had ever been that far, largest vessel still to date at Port McKenzie. So that was good for us to see, okay, this can work. So as an option, we could look into upgrading the infrastructure at Port McKenzie. But all of that is a lot of time and a lot of money. And while the coal market globally has been very strong, the export market has been very strong for the past handful of years, where the railroad and Used Valley would have been making some money if we could have been exporting out of Seward these past 5+ years. But for a small company like ours to invest in that kind of capital would be a major decision. But since we only have the 6 coal-fired power plants in state that we supply 100% of the demand to, really our only way to expand would be on the export market, or if new coal plants were built in Alaska. So kind of goes back to the question of labor, right? Like, we keep a pretty lean machine, but we would love to hire more coal miners if we were able to mine more coal and use more coal.
On the possibility of other in-state power plants, I know it's gonna be out there ways, but I'm hearing rumors of Western Matsu plant. Do you have any more info than what is maybe publicly available?
No, I'm not that stuff. What I know about that project is that organization is looking at significant federal government investment into just initial feasibility. What they want to do is have a coal mine as well as I believe 400 megawatt coal plant, CCS technology, carbon capture and storage technology. And they think that location is well positioned because of the gas reservoirs there that they could inject the carbon into. As the only operating coal mine in the state of Alaska, I can share with you that it is really hard to permit a coal mine. And that area, they don't have a road, they don't have permits to mine, they don't have permits to build a coal-fired power plant. So we think that anytime there's conversation in the state of Alaska that talks about more coal mining and more coal use, we think it's exciting and we support it. That project has a long way to go to becoming reality, but we appreciate that they have a lot of energy and they are staying in the conversation both in DC as well as in Juneau. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Brings us 2 minutes of the previous meeting.
Like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
Moved by Mr. Alexander to accept. Or to approve. And second. Any discussion? Changes or edits? No, 3 minutes. Anyone opposed to approving? All that unanimous? Bring us to reports, start with partner report. And I see,
Jared, was there a second?
Yes.
Okay.
so let's see, I see Ms. Jusak on the Zoom call.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I'm hiding in a concrete stairwell, so I wasn't sure, but we'll give it a go. So I was looking back through my notes this morning on what I've done over the last week or month since my last report, and my thought was, holy moly, how has it only been a month? This has been a long one. So of course, a lot of advocacy over the last month with everything happening on the federal level. And I can say there's a lot of action and work happening, but there isn't a lot of definitive information to share, unfortunately. So I've been in regular communication with Murkowski's office and Sullivan's office, been tasked with finding some specific information for them that has proven pretty hard to track.
I think we lost it.
Give it a second, see if I reconnect.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
My phone tried to connect to Wi-Fi for some reason. So one of the reasons it's been really hard to track down information, of course, is the inability to get accurate information from Park Service through no fault of our local representatives. But things are just changing, and a lot of the impacts are not clear even at this time. For example, there are seasonal positions they could rehire for that they don't have supervisors for, or maybe the people to do those interviews for that hiring, or maybe the person in charge of seasonal housing. So there's still a lot of unknown, and have been able to communicate some with Superintendent Merrill, but she's got a lot on her plate at the moment as well. And so working kind of tangentially with her toward best efforts. In a conversation I had with a staffer at Senator Sullivan's office the other day, I tried to make 2 points really cement those in his mind. And the first was that our tourism industry still hasn't fully recovered in terms of visitation numbers from 2019. You know, revenue's there, those nightly rates are going up, but the actual visitor count has not returned to that pre-number. And many, a very high percentage of independent travelers who come to Alaska are coming to visit more than one national park. Some people are coming to visit them all. They're spending a month or more here, and that's their main goal. So there's a lot of uncertainty as to what this impact will mean. I did a survey with membership second and third week of February, and there was a lot of mixed information that came back to me in that. Some people seem to be primarily excursions, have higher than ever bookings, things are great. I had many comments for accommodations where the phones had just stopped ringing. They weren't getting cancellations, but they weren't getting new reservations like they normally are this time of year. We're seeing a reflection on that in our request for visitor guides. We had, I think, an 8-day period without any requests, which is incredibly unusual at this time of year. So I think there's a lot of wait and see. And I don't feel anybody has a good idea of what's going to happen. I had a conversation this morning with Scott McCrae out of Explore Fairbanks. They're feeling that same uncertainty without having a lot to report or a good guess as to what's happening. So I'm going to repeat that identical survey starting next week, and then again in April, just to see if there's a trend one way or another, if people's answers are changing. but I think there is a good deal of nervousness kind of across the board. And then the other, and of course, that's not just Denali, right? Like that's every national park in the state. And I believe currently, as of my last update, at least, the Mendenhall Visitor Center there out of Juneau had 1 staff member. So there's places that are in worse circumstances than we are, but that has a pretty significant impact. And I'm also curious to see, as the lower 48 hits spring, when people are out more and visiting the parks in the lower 48 that are starting to experience impacts, if that will create a shift at that point, with people saying, oh, maybe I don't want to spend that massive amount of money to travel to Alaska if I don't know what that visit's going to mean. So I do think as we get closer to that April mark, we'll have a better idea of where things stand. So I've been on the phone a lot with members, with our representatives, congressmen, staffers, trying to get more information, but I feel even a lot of those staffers have been pretty honest and blunt, saying you can give us all the data and all the information you need, but the only thing we can do is make a recommendation to the Department of the Interior, and whether anyone listens to that or there's any action on that, we don't know. So if anybody has any definitive information on how it's impacted a business, or if people want to leave feedback, I'd love for them to contact me directly. I've got a couple avenues to collect that information, so we can track this a little better. Off of that depressing topic, worked with Stephanie Ford there in the borough office. She did the bulk of the work. I was a solid supporter, but on the application for technical assistance for the housing study with the University of Minnesota. And then she did submit that request here recently. They have a pretty comprehensive in-house program and it looks promising. But of course, their information is changing regularly too on what they will be able to do, what they will be able to fund, and what that timeline looks like, because they also operate off of federal funding. So a great first step. I was also able to have the EPA Water Technical Assistance planning meeting for the Community Well Project. And they are working on, it's actually a much more in-depth program than I realized initially. And they started asking questions about, like, are we interested in a community public water source, like city, city water? When I explained the layout and pulled up Google Maps and showed them, subdivisions, they were like, oh, that's not practical. But it's a lot more in depth, and they do a vast array of water and sewer projects. So they kind of provided me with a questionnaire template, and I went through and answered a bunch more questions, and they're coming back to me with some potential projects, both in line with the community well, but possibly expanding into other areas that we might need, such as maybe a building that would contain a kitchen for neighbor to neighbor, for example. So exciting to see some movement on that front as well. And they don't do any capital projects at all. So this would be design work to get you all the specs and planning documents you would need to apply for funding to complete the capital project. Let's see. Yeah, was there a question?
Sure.
Okay. We're also looking at launching a new service in-house starting in July that we're calling Launchpad, and it's going to be an evening, or excuse me, a once a month meeting, sometimes an evening, sometimes a weekend during the day, like a 3-hour block where members of the community can come in for help with writing resumes, job applications, come in and talk about skills or certifications they need where they're not sure where to find them or the way to proceed. And so kind of an upskill or training support for members of the public to utilize that service. So we're gonna give it a 6-month trial run, see if it's utilized and how it is, and either make some adjustments or some changes based on that initial 6 months. Also recently reviewed the state of Alaska STIP for statewide transportation projects, and did again advocate for the advancement of that Parks 238 redesign for the Denali Park Canyon, for the functionality and safety component. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot with the concern about what the status of the park will be is what the status of restroom access will be. Many parks have lost janitorial staff, and if that happens here, there's some uncertainty about what that will look like, especially if the visitor center isn't open. And so recognizing that the only public bathrooms near the park is that Kingfisher waste station that's maintained by DOT on a somewhat unpredictable schedule, and that there are no actual public restrooms in the Denali Park Canyon. I also asked them to consider the installation of a second vaulted toilet in that redesign, so that we at least have another one close to where the foot traffic is actually being utilized. And this is, I do occasionally, I think last year I got 2 different emails from visitors saying, I could not find a bathroom in your community. And these are primarily from elderly people, where they don't have a lot of mobility or a lot of speed. And it isn't more of an issue, I think, than I would have ever thought, but it is one that exists. And so seeing if that plan, which of course has no funding at this point, but could potentially be modified to help address that issue that exists. And then on the visitor center side, recently recorded a YouTube video with an Alaska travel blogger, just talking about Denali and the things you should know before you come here. This was all just kind of right as all this federal stuff was starting. So it's got a positive note to it. And then our vacation planners are here in-house. 2,000 of the 20,000 have already been sent out, with a good number more getting ready to go, because cruise ships do start arriving in April. And so we want to make sure all those ports there are stocked. So gearing up for summer hiring. And if you know of anybody who's looking for a pretty part-time job, who likes to talk about the community and all the things that we have here, then send them our way. And then finally, I just wanted to give a quick update. I know many of you, or all of you actually, I think we talked about it in a previous assembly meeting, that I had applied for the board of directors for ICHC, and I did attempt to revisit that discussion with them, and was not received to reinitiate that conversation. So I have started work in combination with some other interested locals on kind of a Denali healthcare unofficial working group to examine different ways that we could potentially be moving toward a solution that's going to work for the borough. So in the early brainstorming and examining possibilities stage, but if anyone has some thoughts they'd like to share in that regard, be happy to hear those as well. And I think that's it for this month. Any questions?
Thank you very much for the report.
And
All the work
the mayor should.
you've been doing. Could you refresh my memory on the kind of the scope of the community well project you mentioned earlier? Is that in the Nana Canyon area as well? Is that related to the 238 stuff, or is that broader?
No, so this would be a community well located at the chamber building that would be equipped with a high flow pump. So people would have the ability, like similar to Water Wagon out of Fairbanks, people could come in and fill up their pickups or their water jugs or whatever it is. Because most of the existing options for that are, a garden hose out of a shed or out of the gas station or whatever. And so it would just be a publicly accessible water source that would serve that kind of existing need. But when I pitched the project initially, you know, I kind of told them that there's a varying amount of need for water access, right? We've got the basic drinking water, we've got you know, a potential kitchen for neighbor to neighbor to be able to prepare and process donated food. We have the need for consistent and reliable showers and laundry. And so I kind of threw all of the different needs in that aspect at them and said, given your expertise and given your knowledge of, you know, grant programs, et cetera, and given everything I've just told you, give me your best recommendations for potential ways to proceed. And maybe that means we start with the water wagon type of building, but we design that entire system to be able to support additional things as potential funding for those projects comes to be. So that's kind of the project I tasked them with. And some of the communications, they're asking some basic questions. Community wells have different requirements based on the number of estimated users and what those uses are and the amount of water that that you would anticipate would be used. So there is some additional data gathering I need to do on my end, but you know, they're asking questions like, in addition to your estimated, and a lot of this pre-planning had been done with EPA back, I think in 19, a lot of that discussion. And so some of this is already identified, but they're also asking like, okay, if you were to add on a shower and a laundry facility, what is the baseline need for that? How many people do you expect? What is the volume of use per day? So now I've kind of go back to the drawing board and get some estimated practical numbers for them so that when they're doing the design work for this project, that we come out with something on the other side that would be feasible to build from.
Yeah, I don't know if it'd be related to the housing needs assessment aspect of it at all, like a significant part of our housing does require those additional services.
Yeah, and we talked about that also, about how we're hoping to have that housing study complete in the next year, and that much of that data we would hope to gather in that process. So likely what they're going to do is design a couple different, like an A system, B system, C system that would fit some different markers so that when that data is available, we can just say this is the appropriate design.
Thank you for that.
All right, well, have a good meeting.
Thank you. Other partner reports? Okay, we'll move on to school district report.
Spring break.
Spring break. All right, let's celebrate.
He gets like 3 weeks off a year, we may as well let him have it tonight.
Okay, finance report. It's in our agenda. Or in our package report.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Canali. And seconded to accept the finance report. Any discussion? Highlights?
No highlights. It's good for now.
Yeah, good for now. Anyone opposed to receiving the financials? Hearing none, I'll call that unanimous. Community Development Director report in our packet, there was a written one.
There is. I'd be happy to highlight verbally highlight a few things that are on that written report that's on the website attached to the meeting agenda.
Yep.
I wanted to mention, and especially, excuse me, that we're working, preparing for the open houses that will be for, to look at both the Yanner conceptual subdivision design as well as the Pangini Stampede design. And so next week, that open house will be here in this building from 4 to 6 p.m. in conjunction with our meeting.
And that's next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Yep, thanks. March 18th. And then the following, the Healy, closest to Healy there, the Pangini Stampede conceptual subdivision design will be on the agenda at the April 16th Planning Commission. The The other piece I wanted to highlight is we're hoping to have a virtual open house that will go live next week for the Yannert. And so if you're not able to make it in person, the maps, the ability to comment through a form will be available online. Good. I wanted to highlight Vanessa's comment about the STIP, the statewide transportation improvement plan that's available online for public comment. So if there are priority transportation projects you care about, I'd encourage folks to get online and check that out. Health and Safety Fair is free, open to the public, March 27th at the Tri-Valley School. There's, I think, over 20 vendors who will have booths and giveaways and information. So check that out, 9 to 3:30 on March 27th. And I'll just, tying in with what Ms. Juzak said, Interior Community Health Center is coming down to present on, it's a required component of their federal funding. It's a needs assessment. And so they're going to talk about healthcare outcomes in their patient population. They're also going to listen to what the community has to say, what are the community's needs and how can the organization meet those. So that in-person meeting will be at the Tri-Valley Community Center in Healy. I don't believe there's going to be a virtual option, so it's either, be there or ask a friend how it went. And that's going to be from noon to 2 p.m. on April 1st.
Is that Monday or?
That's good. I think it's a Wednesday, but
Next Tuesday.
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 Tell your friends, tell all your friends,
April
Interior
1st.
Community Health's coming together. Looking too bad.
Yeah, share information, two-way. They want to share outcomes and talk about the needs they see as far as levels of care. They are going to provide lunch. I should mention that briefly. It's always good. That's
That's your highlight.
yeah, so it's definitely
The pre-report.
the pre-report.
Well, thank you for that. You are up next.
Okay, thank you. Members of the assembly, members of the public, thank you. I wanted to first thank Ms. Simon. Thank you for coming and presenting. It's great to hear about what's going on in, at UCL and talk about the impact. And thank you to the employees, and this goes for GVA as well. I think our whole community really appreciates having power, having heat, and so it's hard work, and we appreciate that. So thanks. I'll echo something Ms. Juzak said. The last 4 weeks has felt advocacy would be the theme. If I had to sum it up in one word, that would be my word as well. With Assembly members Warner and Alexander, Community Development Director Stephanie Ford, and City of Anderson Mayor Katie Greeby, we all went down to Juneau for the legislative, that last Municipal League Legislative Conference. We ran into Lorelei down there. It was a really good opportunity to connect with each other and connect with our delegation and some of the other legislators who are down there. So I'll highlight a few things here that are on my written report. We're watching House Bill 69, which is the BSA increase bill. I believe that was just transferred from the House to the Senate, where I believe it'll sit in the Senate Education Committee. They've modified it from an $1,800 BSA increase that would be statutory to, I think we're down to $1,000 now. For reference, the Denali Borough School District's budget, which they've passed now, was based on an assumption that there would be at least a $680 BSA increase, whether that was one time or what we're hoping for is a statutory increase. There's not much interest or appetite in inflation proofing the BSA, which is, that's a compromise, I would say. And then there's ongoing talks about what additional policy provision will need to be in there that for the governor to sign this bill. And so I would look to Superintendent Bolton to speak to those directly. But we'll keep an eye on it. And we'll keep advocating for education. That's a big part of what we do at the non-borough. So some other just little things I'll highlight. The governor's proposed FY 26 budget does have a $30 million payment to the community assistance fund. The community assistance revenue from the state is about 5% of our borough revenue, so it's not, it is a stable portion of what we expect every year. We talked a lot about deferred maintenance on our school buildings. They're all built in the 70s and 80s. I mentioned how our buildings, and I think it's common in small communities across the state, are more than just a school, a place of learning. They're also community hubs. And they hold our libraries, they hold sports events, just to name a few. So we advocated for school construction and major maintenance, and at the same time, I think right now there's over 500 million in requests. And I think last year, under 20 million was funded, and so that speaks to the need is great. So we'll keep on. Moving on to the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference. I just got back last week. This was my first time in Washington, DC. There's a lot. It's a lot in a word. But
That's what happened. Chris went to DC.
Oh, let me tell you all the things I got. Some good food, some knowledge. I didn't hear show me the money at all, which was good. I did meet with our delegation, Senator Murkowski, staff from Senator Sullivan, and I did meet with Representative Begich and staff. They were all very receptive. I considered the meetings very productive. It was great to be there. Some of the concerns I raised, one of the main ones was related to our federal workforce and how important it is that we have a good product when our visitors that we expect to host this summer come to visit. I shared that a good portion of our visitors who arrive on a cruise ship choose to come back as an independent traveler. And so if they, depending on how their experiences, they may choose to go somewhere else. I tried to share some of the specific impacts to federal cuts, basically folks who have been fired, unfortunately, or folks who have chosen to resign. Senator Murkowski in particular asked about morale, and I was pretty frank with her that I thought it was not good. So all that to say, I think they're interested in understanding specific impacts with knowledge that, I'm not sure they have much they can do. One other project I wanted to highlight that we talked about was the at-grade crossing realignment elimination project at Milepost 235. That requires some federal legislation to permit Denali National Park to perform an exclusive use easement swap with the Alaska Railroad. So we mentioned that, and there's some momentum, and between the two senator offices especially, I think we might be able to get that. We'll look for that language to be included, in the FY 26 process, hopefully. Moving on to solid waste, we're gonna talk about the loader in our budget amendment. Land planning, we've highlighted the virtual open house that's coming up. And I wanted to finish with wishing congratulations to both Tri-Valley High School basketball teams. Both the boys and girls made it to the state tournament. This was the second time they both made it ever. The first time was kind of a bit of a fluke on one of them, I think. The boys just played today and they won. They beat Chief Paul 57-41, and the girls unfortunately lost 39-43 to Shishmark. So anyways, congrats to those boys and girls. That's all I've got. Thanks. And there's more in the red report.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Move on to assembly comments. Let's start online with Mr. Stanfield.
No comments for me at this point. I'll save them to the end, but thanks for including me, and sorry I'm not there in person.
You're missing cookies.
That's right.
Mr. Hammond?
Okay, I think yeah, hit the right button. Yeah, I want to say, hey, congratulations to kids at Tri Valley. I think that's great, and keep that streak up.
No?
Nothing right now, so here comments to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I just have a couple comments I'd like to highlight off of the community development director report. She kind of did my homework for me. The Lions Club has a couple different things coming up here in the near future. First is gonna be, I think it's next Saturday, March 22nd. We're bringing back our cabin fever reliever. I don't know if you guys remember the couple of years back, we had the great party out at the park and blah, blah, blah. The weather does not appear to be cooperating with us for that. So we've moved it to the Tri-Valley Community Center. We're doing an indoor Hawaiian style luau yard game, pork, pineapple party all day. And then we're actually going to be screening the Moana 2 movie, which will be released that day. Or you just stream it on the Disney Plus, but instead of doing it at home, why don't you come do it with us? Bring your beach chair, there's a prize for the best Hawaiian outfit. March is kind of that time when it's kind of getting itchy, you wanna go out and get away from people in your immediate circles and just have a good time, so we'll have cornhole and ladder toss and hopscotch taped on the floor, like, we're gonna try and bring just a little bit of spice to the March, cause this is one of the longest 30-day months of the year. The other Lions Club event I'd like to highlight is on April 16th. We're hosting actual Lions Club International, so Lions Club Healy, right? A part of Lions Club International, so there are international directors and higher up folks that are traveling through Alaska. And we've convinced them to stop at the library and talk about a program called Lions Quest. It's kind of catered to dovetail with like a homeschool program. It's about, building integrity and character and doing the right thing. And we thought as a club, especially with our peak students and some of those distance learning folks, that this might be another tool for their toolbox. The international directors are just we're very humbled that they even want to stop and talk to our community. So if you're interested or just want to come show some support, we'll have snacks and you meet some people from different countries that are Lions Club members, and I think that's pretty cool. That will be on April 16th in the library. And then we also are trying to talk them into attending the school board meeting the following day very briefly with like a 15-minute spiel about the same program. So it's just a really cool opportunity. We don't get a lot of international visitors coming through our town very often, so we tried to highlight them. And I think even though it is written on this report, which is very handy as a reminder to me, it would be cool to like show them the Healy community or the Denali Borough hospitality. I'll save the rest of my comments for the end.
What was the date of the cabin fever?
March 22nd, it is a Saturday.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna start at noon and the movie starts at 6. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming. I'll take my opportunity to do a little bit of a go back, with Ms. Simon. Really appreciate kind of the report, just kind of like the local economic impacts. And just kind of like the longevity, the year-round job aspect of it, the stability that the coal mine has offered the community is huge, and like being an employee that feels a little bit unstable recently, just really appreciate that. And then also one aspect of it that I think would be important to hear about is kind of like the carbon aspects of it, and just, I know it's gotta be a topic in the coal community all the time, so I'm not sure how much is addressed in the report, but whether if there's any movement or has thought been put into, like carbon capture, like here locally. Just kind of as that technology evolves, love to see something like that. If it's realistic, to be implemented in here, just in the community, like, love the clean coal aspect of the plant that we do have. If we're gonna be burning coal that's mined here, like mining it right there at the source, capturing the carbon and, you know, scrubbing out as much of the bad stuff that we don't want in the air, like that. That's the kind of plant that I want, you know, to live nearby and have that be part of the community, so. To that extent, and then also just, you know, I've been hearing things about, you know, as we start shipping like natural gas. Like we're gonna frack the gas and then put it through a pipeline and then put it in a boat and ship it around the world. And then burn it anyway, and it's like environmentally, like how does our local plant, you know, where we're mining it, put in a truck and then burning it and sending the electricity through the wires, like how does that compare to some of the other technologies that are out there? So, not that it's gonna be the best environmentally necessarily, but when you balance it with what those jobs look like and what that means for the community, just to have a, I don't know, a fair representation and to be able to discuss things on that ground. Good.
Thank you, yeah, good reports, thank you for coming, everyone that came. When we were down in Juneau, I happened to be sitting next to one of the people that work in Juneau. And we were discussing, because I think it was a couple meetings ago or last meeting, I was talking about how Juneau had a fund which they gave like $5 million to a developer to build housing. And I was thinking of a similar sort of process, but more for encouraging healthcare providers. And so he gave me some good information about that. And so I was hoping to, during our next finance committee meeting, I thought that that would be a good time to kind of explore this and hash it out. And, you know, see if that would fit into, you know, the borough and our finances and all that. And I would hope that maybe after the next meeting, we could report back to the assembly, the next assembly with, you know, some sort of conclusions that we had, or maybe a path forward.
Yeah, can we include that as an agenda item for the April 2nd? finance?
Yeah. Sound good? Yeah, so it was, you know, that's the thing with the, you know, the meetings and going to, you know, the conferences that you just don't know who you're gonna sit next to, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you do this. And this was the guy that administered the program, so he had a lot of really good ideas. Right, so I hope to bring that to the finance committee and hope that next meeting will have something to present. That's it.
I didn't think I had any comments, but Mr. Zimmerman and I now do, so I apologize. But on just coal, I've just for curiosity's sake on my own, just a point of pride about the coal that we burn and the power that we produce. Like you can make the argument by numbers that the power we make by burning coal is cleaner than the power we make by using wind. You know, if you look at unit 1, that's been purring along for the last, what? Almost, well, 50 plus years now.
Almost 50 years.
Yeah, it's been purring along, with the emissions controls that we have now. And the longevity of the unit versus the longevity of our turbines and of our wind turbines and the actual power that we get out of them. On paper, I think you could say that as far as emissions go, we're actually beating our wind power so far. And technology is going to change, like was already stated. Technology is going to change as these projects, technology improves and things. You know, that will change. But where we are right now, the coal that we burn is environmentally a very good option. Another point of pride with just the place that we live in and the resources that we have. I just discovered last week that we now have like almost commercial scale corn farming. You know, on that new ag development across the Nenana, and that's Nenana, a little bit outside of our borough, but. You know, I'm excited this summer to, you know, support more locally grown and produced things. I'm really excited about that. And yes, I'm
It is
super excited
sweet
about
corn.
that.
It is.
Yeah, it's sweet corn.
Yeah.
And they're producing, anyway, I'm excited about it. Almost commercial scale. And then on the.
Where is it marketed?
They had a couple they were selling on the side of the road. I never saw them, but I guess they're selling on the side of the road there in Nenana. And then a couple other places, I guess they're selling to a few retailers. I found them on YouTube just by accident. And,
I forget, we met the guy last year. I forget his name. He was a funny guy.
Yeah, you came with Josh.
Yeah,
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 yeah, I remember that.
the corn guy.
the corn guy. I'm super excited. I didn't realize that you could grow corn. over there, so
Hopefully we'll be able to, get some in Three Bears and Healy.
that would be great.
Yeah.
And just thanks to work on the subdivision planning side of things. You've done a lot of legwork for us and we certainly appreciate that. That is a resource that we have and we need to move forward on it. It's something that takes a lot of time, but thank you for the work you put into it. That's all I've got.
We do have a draft ordinance on the agenda tonight, and that is our FY 25 budget amendment.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Bones, introduced, and seconded. Mayor Noel.
Thank you. I'd be happy to walk through it. I apologize. I don't think we have any paper copies for those here in the room, but this is available online as part of our this meeting's packet. And then I also have some notes that came from our treasurer, Allison Johnson, so I'll kind of hopscotch around here, but please interrupt me if there's questions. Starting in revenue, we projecting a bit of a bump up a little bit, a 5% increase over FY 24 actuals. We did take, let me pause here for a second. So we did take, as allowed by code, 1/2 of the permanent investment fund earnings. We can withdraw those and, or we can leave them in the permanent investment fund to continue accruing interest. We chose to withdraw those and that shows up in the fund transfers because it's directly, we're investing that in the land management capital fund. So I don't offhand couldn't tell you that number, but we did choose to withdraw 1/2 of the earnings this year. Let's see. So moving down into general fund expenses. Again, everything that has changed from the budget is in red, whether it's gone up or down, it's in red. Some benefit changes, mostly just like truing up with actual costs. I'll highlight repairs and maintenance. We did bring that down from 60,000 to 30,000, in large part because we've kind of shrunk what we're planning to do with the office remodel. We're pretty well set with where we want to be. We're ordering some furniture right now, but we're not going to make any big changes, so we bumped that down. Moving to line 4,300, the budgetary reserve, just showing how that very conservative budgeting technique where we budgeted for $1.2 million that we knew we weren't going to spend. Though it actually
Didn't plan to spend.
didn't plan to, and we didn't spend this, and so it gets zeroed out, and it's in the bank still available for FY 26 budgeting. I did want to highlight contingency. This is a very small change, but we bumped that from 4,000 to 10,000, in part because our neighbors to the north, the city of Nenana, asked if we would contribute in their efforts to procure the golden spike. It was on auction, and I don't think we've talked about this. I don't think it came up last month. I just wanted to highlight this. I basically just said, yes, sure, we'd love to contribute and be a partner in this. The city of Nenana partnered with the Anchorage Museum And they secured the spike, they're gonna display it at the depot in Nenana, and we're really happy that they got it. And it's staying in Alaska, it was on auction at Christie's in New York. And the spike has been out of the state for a long time.
How much did it cost?
Roughly
That's-
$10,000
How much?
on here, contingency.
Oh, we contributed $4,500. It's great value for us. It was, I think the spike itself was about, $45,000 in gold, but it went for well over 100,000 at auction.
All right.
It's a piece of Alaska history that they were really, interested in bringing home. I did foresee that maybe that could come pay a visit to the park at some point, where the Denali Borough material, so.
Cool beans.
I'm gonna keep going here. We increase in overall governance, 13.5% over FY 24 actuals. So I'll highlight our transfers, operating transfers. We've bumped up both operating transfers to land management, which is an enterprise fund, and solid waste, which is an enterprise fund. They don't operate, they don't operate, they operate at a loss. And so these transfers backfill that account to continue our ability to operate those. You'll notice land management capital, 459,175. That's a large number because we expect to continue as related to municipal entitlement lands. We're putting in survey instructions, and it's reassuring to know that we might not actually need to survey the Yanner parcel. It sounds like we don't. All the monuments are set, but we'll need to, I guess, prove it basically, and hopefully they can send us the patent for that. The rest of our 49,000 acres, a large chunk of that's not been surveyed yet, and so we are saving for the eventuality that we'll get those survey instructions and we can go have that surveyed. And then we can receive title, and then we can really manage it how we want.
And so getting the survey instructions, like we've gone through the process to apply for that. Or how does that work?
In a nutshell, and we could try to follow up with maybe Marcia and have her give us a tutorial.
Yeah,
But in a nutshell, we need to request those survey instructions from the state.
so we've done that part.
In some cases, we have, for
Yeah.
example, Otter Lake, that happened in the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
One section of the Anderson area municipal entitlement lands, we
Uh-huh.
requested, received, had it surveyed. Then we send the survey back to the state, they approve it, and then they send us title.
Right.
Years later. From
Years later.
from the time that Marcia, who is getting ready to batch these big, like Slate Creek is thousands of acres, 25,000 acres. When we request that, those survey instructions to receiving title, that's somewhere in the like 6 to 8 year range. That's how long it takes. So this will be something that we, the borough, will need to continue to monitor because we're making a commitment to requesting these survey instructions. We only have 2 years once we get the instructions.
To survey. Okay,
But they
If we
have
don't-
8 years to approve it and send us.
yeah,
Well, it takes that long, but by the time they get it to us and then we put it out for survey, the survey itself can take 1 to 2 summers or more, depending on the size of the parcel. So it's a long-term commitment, a long-term investment, but we could have Marcia maybe explain that further. Does that kind of answer your question?
yeah, I was just wondering what the process, how the process is and where, so like, for instance, the Pangini and
Yeah.
those parcels, we ended up having to we haven't gotten instructions yet. Is that the case for those?
The Pangini B parcel, which includes, it does not include the Lignite
Right.
subdivision. It does include the Pangini Stampede. The
Right,
Pangini B parcel has been surveyed.
okay,
It's at this, it went to the state. They marked a bunch of red lines. It came back to our local surveyor. He, I believe, is still in the process of revising it and then it'll get sent back.
Okay, and then the approval process is like another year or two or whatever.
Well, it could be pretty quick if.
Okay.
There weren't that many changes requested, so it could be, we could see the title to that, I would think, in the next year.
And so was it the lignite one? I thought that one of them we had to start the process. It was lignite.
Lignite is just outside of the Pangini B parcel, which itself took 10 years, in part because the highway realignment occurred in there. There were a number of factors, but
Okay,
the lignite parcel is just outside of Pangini B. What, I think what Marcia is thinking right now is that we could submit for instructions for just that subdivision,
right,
and it could be a little quicker.
okay. But still a ways,
Away.
Quicker is relative.
Yeah.
yeah,
A little quicker.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyways, I wanted to highlight that transfer, and I think that might be the only other thing. Let's see, let's move on to land management. I want to talk about some things here. Little changes, staff salary, we're expecting some kind of overlap as, our land planner Marcia Lambert moves on. We have bumped up consultant fees, and we're actually we're gonna request that you consider bumping that up next meeting as well. And I can talk more about it, but basically, we're doing a lot when it comes to consulting, subdivision planning, road standard planning, and a lot of that's coming out of here, so we need to bump that up a little bit more. I'm gonna flip over to solid waste. We did bump up, we're expecting a little bit more in tipping fees than we had budgeted for, so we're amending that upward slightly. And then repairs and maintenance, I'm gonna zero in on line 4052. That number, 215,000. We're gonna recommend bringing that down to 100,000 because the loader, the 966 loader repair came back. And it was $183,766. So our recommendation is amend repairs and maintenance back down, and let's come at this unexpected expense through an allocation ordinance from solid waste equipment reserve. And so we'll capitalize that repair, which is a rather large repair. And account for it more in a one-time thing versus in our regular budget, so.
and so you would bring that down to 100,000?
Yep, that's gonna be a good recommendation. And our recommendation was kind of, let's talk about it this meeting and then make them,
What was the repair?
what was it?
Yeah.
Basically, the hydraulic system, sprung a leak, a hose cracked, there's a steel hose. That there was a mounting bracket that had rattled loose, the steel hose cracked, and the machine pumped itself dry. And then the hydraulic pump shredded, is how I understand it, and so their shavings kind of like.
Well, yes, I'm just wondering about the life of the asset, if it's gonna get capitalized, how long would that? What would life expectancy be for this repair cost?
Tell you what, why don't we have our solid waste operations manager, Scott Wright, we'll try to get him to the next assembly meeting as well. So he could talk to it, speak to that specifically. But basically, everything that they needed to access to fix this, they've replaced if it was beyond its useful life. So my understanding is it did extend, it's pretty thorough.
Yeah, listening to him discuss it, it sounded like it elongated the life of that piece of equipment by a lot of years.
Good to know how many years, so next we can go.
Yeah.
Prepare to speak to.
He'd be much better able to speak to that.
And we're still, it's our key piece of equipment, and it does have, we know it's got 13,000 hours, so we do need to keep planning for its eventual replacement. And that when we're, as far as transfers in, we can move back to solid waste equipment reserve. In the current budget, you all budgeted to transfer 200,000 in to keep that account balance growing.
Well, if it costs 170,000 to fix it, I imagine, is to replace it, is adding a few more zeros onto that.
Yeah, I think they're about 600. They're 966 right now. It's about $600,000.
Those are the highlights and the lowlights and everything in between, so. if there's any-
Yeah, exactly. On the amending up the overnight accommodations tax. I mean, given the kind of uncertainty that Mr. Jones and Ms. Juzak spoke to. I don't know whether that's maybe we should revisit that.
I would wish Treasurer Allison Johnson was here because these are based on actuals, overnight accommodation receipts from the first 2 quarters of fiscal
Okay,
year.
okay.
2025. We just, I guess
We've finished the first 2 quarters and we're headed towards the 3rd quarter now, which will be, if there are any adjustments in that one, they'd be very minor because we don't have very many operators in the
Right.
3rd quarter.
Right,
And the 4th quarter is when everyone's back in business, so
right.
I feel like those first 2 quarters are the ones that are most indicative of the money to be made.
so I think she forecasted this based on receipts from last summer.
Right,
I will say, from what I've heard from Aramark and Holland America Princess, they're
right, I mean,
cautiously
they're,
optimistic that
Right.
this summer is gonna be busy.
I mean, it might much more affect the independent traveler
Yeah,
than somebody who's already got their cruise ship booked.
I think foreign travelers, to what degree that drives occupancy is a high risk number
Right,
right now. So I think we need to be conservative wherever we can.
I would think that a lot of the people that are planning on coming here this year made those plans last year or even the year before. So we might have kind of a gracious window of people they're coming, and then unfortunately, once the Yelp reviews go out about the state of our public toilets and the
Right.
lack of
It's gonna be a
infrastructure.
shitty experience.
Yeah, so like, I just think that we might find a little bit of a bubble. Cause people who plan to come here, especially
Right.
those national park,
Right.
explorers, they typically plan a couple of years ahead of time, so.
Yep. Okay,
Prepare for it, but maybe hope it doesn't quite happen the way it looks like it might happen.
But as next month, we'll get a first look at our budget, so I think that in terms of forecasting and see what the sense is then, but I think we'll know more as we go through this next budgeting process,
yeah.
it'll hopefully become, or hopefully not, become clear, as we get towards our June deadline for our.
Yeah. And as Vanessa, she's the one as Chamber Director Vanessa Juzak and I have talked a little bit over the last few weeks, like data is important from a Chamber of Commerce perspective. It's important for the borough as well, but we have limited tools to forecast what visitation might look like.
Right.
What revenue will be. So I think it's really, we're looking at, but I'll try to make sure that Allison's here next month so we can speak to that more.
Yeah, we have had, some of the folks from HAP come and speak at the meetings, in the past. But it could be worthwhile, I mean, in a similar way that we had, Ms. Simon here tonight, so.
Yeah.
I know it's been a few years since we've had
Yeah,
that one as well.
I think they were here, actually.
When we raise taxes.
Yeah, they came.
On the-
they came to
when you
speak
read
about
that,
it.
they
No, they came to talk about.
Different presentation, that one's,
Yeah. It's always nice to have our neighbors in church, huh? So I will move to postpone ordinance 25-01 to discuss and amend at next month's meeting.
we will approve it first, or we introduce it first. And then we'll,
Are we doing
we,
discussion?
we're still doing discussion, but
My bad.
how are we doing on discussion?
I think we're doing pretty good on discussion.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I would ask for a roll call vote then on introduction of the budget amendment.
Walter Warner,
Yes.
Richard Hammond,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yes.
Krista Zapone,
Yes.
David Alexander,
Yes,
Jeremy Stanfield,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Ordinance is introduced.
like to make a motion to postpone ordinance 25-01 until the next meeting.
Second. Okay. Moved by Mr. Alexander to postpone and seconded. Any discussion on postponing? Anyone opposed to postponing? Hearing none, we can get that unanimous. There are no ordinances, up for consideration or approval, so we'll move to resolutions. We have one resolution, 25-05, support application to receive congressionally designated spending funding and a Denali Commission grant for the Healy to Denali National Park Community Connector Path.
Move to approve resolution 25-05.
Second,
Moved by Ms. Zapone to approve the resolution and seconded. Mayor Noel, want to provide some highlights?
Yeah, so this is for, by code, we need to have resolutions supporting grant applications, and so this is, we're kind of unusual in that we combine two into one resolution here, so this kind of authorizes or supports a congressionally directed spending request of $3 million for FY 26 through Senator Murkowski's office, and $1 million for through the Denali Commission through the FY 2025 Rural Surface Transportation Match Gap Funding Opportunity. Both of those are going towards the separated pathway construction of the separated pathway segment from Santrano Road north to Stampede and Lake Knight. The cost has gone up over the last few years. I think we have it in here. So the total cost right now estimate is $12.8 million. So this is, we're just trying to chip away, secure funding towards that segment. That's it in a nutshell.
You met with Senator Murkowski last week, you said, and if this came up, how confident is she that this money is going to be available? When, if it all goes through, what's to say it doesn't get yanked back through some arbitrary cutting decision by who knows who?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think she shared uncertainty, quite a bit of uncertainty and concern with the way things are being cut, the arbitrary nature, lack of coordination, lack of kind of collaborative approaches to these big decisions that impact services that our residents. What's that?
Or due process.
Yeah. We didn't talk specifically about our CDS requests. We did talk a little bit, so the budget reconciliation process is what they, and I knew very, I'm kind of speaking from what I heard, not what I know. But it sounds like they may use the budget reconciliation process for the FY 26 budget, which is you need control of both House, Senate, and the White House to be able to do this, and it's only for budgeting purposes, I believe. That could be good. It could be good for Senator Murkowski, who's on Senate Appropriations. It could be good for her. All that to say, it didn't come up specifically. I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. We were invited on the Denali Commission. Those are federal dollars that have been scrubbed of the federal designation, and so they can be used as a match towards federal dollars. And so I'm cautiously optimistic on that. We were invited to apply, and so I feel pretty good about that. $1 million.
and that would constitute our portion of the,
At this point, Community Development Director Stephanie Ford was here, she's kind of forecasted out how we might get to $12.8 million.
Right.
I would expect the borough is gonna need,
Kick in some.
look to contribute at some point.
Yeah.
And at some level, in the future.
Keep moving forward.
Congressional designated spending is its own thing. State project up and do coming for like a required match.
Yeah.
This is one piece, like one step towards that full project completion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and this segment is design and engineering is underway and currently funded, so we're feeling good about that, secure in that funding. And it'll kick back up, and for those in the audience, that we're also designing and engineering the segment from McKinley Village down to Carlo Creek, and so there's gonna be more opportunity for public input. Probably next spring, well, this spring, later this spring into this coming summer, so. I will say also, I haven't heard any concern with our CDS funding, the 0.64 million for the segment from McKinley Village up to the park entrance, so I think that's secure.
One day it's gonna be good,
Until it finds it.
hopefully.
Congressionally designated,
Directed, sorry.
directed,
It's directed, yeah.
sounds like it would be explicitly done to avoid that, but for whatever that's worth anymore.
I would make a motion to approve resolution number 25-05. We already did that? Where was that?
We just discussed.
We were just
Seconded.
discussing. You wanna speak in favor of the resolution?
I like the resolution.
Any other discussion?
What you put in the snacks?
All right, I would ask for roll call vote then on approval.
Jeremy Stanfield,
Yes.
Richard Hammond,
Yes.
Krista Capone,
Yes.
Dominic Canali,
Yeah.
David Alexander,
Yes.
Walter Warner,
Yes.
Jared Zimmerman.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. So that brings up two other business, and we have a couple items to follow up on from our school board joint work session. There was a communication from Superintendent Bolton.
I didn't prepare anything for this. I was also, I'm sorry to have missed that joint work session. But I did understand there was some discussion about the septic system in Leachfield at the Tri-Valley School, and there's lots of interest in replacing it. I will say Superintendent Bolton and I discussed that borough reimbursing the school district for the Tri-Valley roof replacement project as complete. They're just waiting for reimbursement from the state. The borough hasn't shared our share of that project yet. And the way I understand it is we've often waited until the state's reimbursed and then we reimburse. Maybe Mr. Stanfield can speak to this too. But if we went ahead and reimbursed ahead of time, could that allow the district to go and procure this septic system replacement project this summer, which would be a good deal. A bad deal for the softball players, but a good deal for the school.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say on that is just that we have already, the school district has already submitted an RFP for that project, and they are looking to push forward with that and see if it's something that can get done this summer. Like that's the goal currently.
Great.
And we've already allocated our portion of that. We just haven't cut the check. Is that right? Or is there an allocation ordinance that's gonna be necessary for us to do that?
For the septic.
If we're to
No,
reimburse them for
reimburse
the
them.
roof, or the,
That's correct. You've already passed that allocation ordinance. I don't have that amount in front of me, but it's fixed by that ordinance up to that amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could cut that check.
yeah,
Would that amount change based on what the Because it's a proportion of what the state pays, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, it could potentially change if they're not reimbursing for the whole thing.
I don't think the number changes. I think the project cost has been completed and submitted. I think at this point, it's just a matter of the school receiving the funds from the state, which is, will happen whenever it happens. So yeah, I don't think there's any difference in the number.
So do you need anything from us to go ahead with that?
No,
Seems like a fine thing to do, right?
Do you wanna make a motion to authorize or encourage? No, we haven't done it.
Hi, thanks. One of the things I'd like to highlight from that presentation that Mr. Folta gave was that the roof project is in, I think it was the top 5 priority list from the state level. So the odds are that they will get reimbursed shortly thereafter. So this is just us kind of changing the way we've always handled that transaction into doing it now.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we've already approved and have already allocated those funds to the school, so we're just kind of giving it to them early. And I think in light of the condition of the septic system and the reports that we've gotten over the past couple of years about that particular issue, I would be very comfortable, doing it so that if they can break ground this summer and take care of it, we're not dealing with this in.
Yeah, better to do it sooner rather than later, else we're gonna have another shitty situation.
Well, a little bit. Yeah, and I think, we always partner with the school, so I think it's a good idea overall. I will let him do it for a few months.
well, and you don't have to take action. We can just.
We should do it, right?
Yeah.
General consensus FYI. We're
Yeah, I
gonna
think
give them the money.
It's like a fine idea.
Yeah, it's just that's the mechanics of it. So, and at that same time, and maybe Jeremy knows, like, that project is still on the major school maintenance list, I believe.
It
We,
is.
and it's on our CIP list as well. So I think it's a good idea to just keep that in the queue with the state. And I guess I would not recommend I'll just leave it at that, like, keep going with our process.
I would really like to know, that we talked about this last time, I would really like to know if this is the original septic system.
It probably is.
Like, we, from the word we got, it probably is the original septic system, but I really want to know if that's just, urban legend, or if that's actual fact.
Steve knows.
Mr. Jones knows.
I know, because I replaced the original.
Ah,
And with the loan of a huge, big, digger from the mine that they drove across the river and parked there so that I could dig it in the winter, then it failed and replace it
how long ago was that?
20 years ago. At least, it's lasted a long time.
Well, thanks for that, that's more information than we had.
Yeah.
Highlight.
It was replaced in the same position that the original one.
So not in the beach field.
Then there was a big pile of usable rock in the state pit north of Healy that we acquired for putting in as the drain rock for that.
So the last time it failed, it happened in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
The only machine in the area that would dig that ground is the use of other machine. Which he parked over there on Friday and I returned it to him Monday.
Nice, well done.
Impressive.
That was after all the additions had been done to the school?
Yeah, well, I don't know about all of them, but all of them that I worked on. I think there's been at least one more addition since. I worked on that.
Well, 20 years.
So is it fair to report that the assembly is in support of releasing those funds?
Yes.
Go forth and give them money.
Yep, I haven't heard anything other than that.
What else came up at that meeting?
I would just, I read that right before we came because it's in the packet, I think, the online packet.
Superintendent Polta sent us, or you maybe forwarded us, specific to the septic
Right.
question, and I'm not sure if there was.
And there was one more piece of it and it slipped my mind.
I guess just in terms of, to catch you up on kind of the gist of the conversation, I think we had a good conversation, kind of led by, I think board member Green, just about the, yeah, and Mr. Hammond, yeah, I mean, as well, but just kind of about the status of the school in Anderson and some discussions about community use of that, way that it's being used now, access to homeschool programs to the school there, and yeah, a little bit of future of the facility. I don't, those are kind of my recollections. I thought it was a good, yeah, a good conversation. Anybody else wanna?
How was it? That's good. Summary.
I mean, other than his normally very detailed updates from, space student allocations and the enrollment numbers, and he highlighted how that process works when they get counted, and kind of caught all of us, back onto speed as far as our two smaller schools, Anderson and Cantwell, and kind of projections going forward. But it was a very good, few hours spent, and I definitely like that annual tradition of doing that. They went over their budget and their capital projects, and
The other aspect from Superintendent Polta was regarding the facility survey.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Which are good for about 10 years. So it might be good to do another one in a year or two.
Yeah.
And then when they did the facility survey, they did do a perk test on the leach field, and it had decreased by a third compared to when it was installed. They had it as it being installed in 1972.
It is, right? I mean, the school was built about then.
Yeah, and then if you had done it 20 years after that.
Yeah, I can't remember the date, but,
Yeah.
I know that I could park my backhoe in the bucket,
until like 1990.
It's fun running that thing, probably.
it was.
Sounds good. And we'll, let's capture that, condition survey in our CIP process this year. Make sure we get it in there.
Yes, it's a great idea, thank you. So no action needed. You good on follow-up? Liquor license renewals for, I guess marijuana license for Cannabis Cash and liquor licenses for Creekside, Penny Q's, Grizzly, Bar and Grill, and the Denali North Star Inn.
I'd like to make a motion of not protesting the 5 applications before us.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Bone, not protest, and seconded. Any discussion? Any opposition to not protesting? All that unanimous. Bring us to public comments.
Steve Jones again. Sometime between, well, Stephanie Ford and I will be here from 4 to 6 next Tuesday. As to present, show people what plans or the ideas for plans for development in this area. And if we want to discuss the other two, we can do that. But if any of you guys want to actually see what these look like, give me a call. Anytime, I'll run up there. I mean, I live on the road. I'm the most impacted by this development. I would be happy to meet you and actually show you what the land is. I'm not sure any of you have ever actually seen it. It might be worth why this proposal is being proposed. Give you an idea. So anyway, give me a call. No more than two of you at one time. And I'd be happy to meet you here and go there.
Yeah, and the proposed access for the subdivision that's been going through the design phase is accessed on your road
No.
and going up past that. It's accessed. It's from,
My road is too steep.
okay.
I have no idea what the outcome of my road would be. But there is a much, lower grade access. And I can show you where that would be. That would be one of the things I can do.
Okay,
It's up Carmen,
okay.
so go up Carmen, make a left, and that goes around into it.
All right.
So,
Thank you. Other public comments?
Yeah, here. Tiffany Cross here. I just wanted to make a quick correction. I think when the Hawaiian party for the Lions Club was discussed earlier, a noon start time was mentioned, and I think it's actually starting at 4:30. I think we're gonna start cooking at noon.
Oh, that's good, my bad. I'm supposed to be there at noon, that's what I know.
Sorry, life's been crazy, and I'm like, did I mess up? So.
Thank you.
I'll see you at noon.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Hopefully nobody else.
My bad. I appreciate that for sure.
You gonna get the coal mines excavator and bury that pig?
Now, but we have an actual Hawaiian cooking it.
All right.
He's Dave Santos of our Shannon Walters' husband.
Mhm.
He's gonna cook for us.
That's exciting.
Thanks.
I'm looking forward to it. Dave's a good guy.
Should be fun. Have to get the day off too, better not forget.
He's a good guy.
Cool. Thank you. Any others? Anybody online? Public comments? Yeah, Ms. Arthur, see your hand up.
Hello. So my question is, and I don't know if this was addressed with the woman from the coal mine. I want to know what the levels and the expanse is for methane gas, because I know that burning coal produces a lot of methane, and that tends to hang out in an area or just be in an area. So I'd like to, if there's a follow-up or some more information about that, I would like more information about that.
So methane gas is not released from the stack. Methane gas is 100% consumed in the combustion process, and anything, because methane is combustible, it's volatile. Anything that's volatile is burned off from the boilers. So there might be some release of methane gas in the mining process, but as far as burning coal goes, it just adds fuel to the fire. None of that goes.
Stop. Put it back on. I'm trying to listen.
And there was the Healy Basin coal, there was a coal bed methane lease that I think Usabelli has or had. I'm not sure if it's still, if it's expired or not, but I think there was a couple of exploratory wells that were drilled specifically looking for methane. But that is not moved along very far, I don't think. Maybe.
I think we can fairly say, we'll ask Miss Simon maybe to get that information for us.
Yeah, or reach out, I think, to Ms. Simon,
Yeah.
with that question.
Yeah, but as far as the burning of coal goes, there's absolutely zero methane being released after it gets fed to the boiler. I can tell you that for sure.
That is what.
Well, okay, I would like to actually see some numbers then. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. Other public comments? Okay, we'll move on to assembly comments. The reverse order, Mr. Warner?
Again, I shouldn't have any, except, I forgot to mention this earlier, when we were speaking with Senator Kawasaki, we talked about the representation on the Interior Health Board. And I can't remember where we ended up with that. Because we talked about you being on there, Mrs. Jusak being on there.
They're still in, yeah, thanks. There's, I see, Interior Community Health Center is still actively recruiting a current patient to be on their board of directors, and we, yeah.
From this district. This,
Yeah,
From
from
Healy.
Denali, I mean, of their patient population, we're maybe a very small minority of the total
Well,
patient
it's-
population, but we do recognize that we should,
Yeah.
we would like a voice. And yeah, as Ms. Dudek said, you know, they're an organization and they have the ability to kind of pick and choose who might be that best fit. And Mayor Dave Talrico was previously on the board. I considered it for myself, but I don't think I should at this point. I think I'd encourage folks who, if you do go to ICHC, I would consider whether you might be willing and interested to serve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure where we left off with it. That's all.
Yeah.
Good meeting, thank you again, everybody who came to do it in person and take some snacks and cookies for the road.
Thanks, everybody, again, for the good turnout. I'm excited about the Golden Spike, the banana. I look forward, I think it'd be great to have it down in the park, and I was thinking, after we kind of talked about it in the meeting, but if we are gonna realign the railroad and have like a big construction project, it might be an interpretive moment to talk about the history of the
Right.
of the railroad, there's a long history, but, and there would be a fair size impact if that project does come to fruition right there, along the highway, so. Anyways, but I wanna see it, so if it can make a little high security tour through here, it's a pretty hefty nugget, but it'd be fun, and I'm glad that we're participating in that. It's good to bring it home.
Yeah, just wanna, I know Miss Simon left, but I wanted to again thank her for making the trip to visit with us. It's always nice. Definitely wanna thank you for saving my bacon about the luau party, unintended. It's a good meeting, you know, the daylight, I mean, you can still see it out there, so
Yeah,
hopefully, everybody's doing well and getting excited. I mean, it's almost here. I know that in my day job, we're already starting to get ready, so. Just the exciting time of year, and I appreciate it. The rest of you for coming. Like, Mr. Zimmerman said, this is probably one of our best, in-person attended meetings in quite some time, so. And actually, you guys kind of always show up for us, and we appreciate that as well.
All right, yeah, I agree, good meeting, and thank you all for coming, appreciate the appearance by Lorelei Simon. Like what's been said, it is good to be updated as to what the coal mining is up to and its impact on the state of Alaska and the Denali Borough. Appreciate all the reports and the information that was provided, very detailed as always, so thank you. And other than that, just, you know, eat around, is almost there, so go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, that was fantastic information on the usability coal mine. I wasn't, I didn't have that much in-depth information, and I'm glad that, you know, that got brought to our attention and put out there. I also wanted to, hey, thanks the assembly. This is a fantastic assembly, especially compared to what we hear about other communities and what's on the news and everything else. I just want to put a shout out there to you guys that I appreciate this group of folks. They're doing a great job. I hope the community actually realizes that, and I think they do. And I forgot with the basketball teams, it's actually Anderson and Tri Valley. It's a co-op team, and shame on me because my son's on it. So congratulations, Preston, Tri Valley, and Anderson. So that's it from me, guys.
Mr. Stanfield.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate being a part of this. I thanks to everyone, for helping to educate the public. I think it was a good meeting. Dave saved me some cookies. I think my final comments that I just wanted to kind of make and maybe sort of rehash is just in regards to, seeing the budget amendment and, in regards to the enterprise funds. And I just want to, I guess my comments on that are, as these enterprise funds are designed to, the revenues are supposed to cover the costs, I can't help but see they're moving in the wrong direction. And I know that steps are being made. If we look at solid waste, I know we've raised the tipping fees. And we've yet to see really the net effect of all of that. I know that revenues are planned to go up. But it still costs twice as much to run that place as the revenue it creates. And at some point, I think we need to look at what we're going to do about that. And I don't expect to see the FY26 budget double tipping fees, to match that out. But this is an enterprise fund. That's the way it's designed. So, I think we need to look at that as a borough, and what we want to do about that. And maybe it shouldn't be an enterprise fund. I don't know. But I just wanted to throw that out there. And similarly with the land management, that's pretty lopsided. I understand staffing changes, consulting fees, that also goes in the wrong direction. And perhaps, that is more of a long-term look, down the line as we do sell land, kind of grow the community. Maybe that does net out to even out over a long term. But as for someone who just kind of looks at it as last year's budget, this year's budget, it's definitely steered towards the expense side, not the revenue. And so I don't know, again, I don't expect to see next year's budget, solve all of that or anything, but I wouldn't mind seeing, maybe as we look at all of this master planning, maybe some 5-year outlook on that land management, or 10-year, or something that kind of shows, is the revenue, going to help offset that expense. And so those are my two parting comments. But again, appreciate everyone's support, and thank you.
Yeah, we have to sell some land.
Yeah.
Start throwing more things away. Start feeding that landfill again.
Catch up to Fairbanks, so.
Okay, we have meetings coming up. I think it's gonna be a good one on March 26th. Grant Review Committee meeting at the Denali Borough office. 6 p.m. Noon start. Meals provided, overnight accommodations. I think it might be a big one.
Meeting will start at 10 p.m. for me.
Oh.
Just so you know.
I'm gonna back on nice, so. Take that off work.
You guys get a fighting.
See, that'll probably be long.
You can address, if you all want to consider moving it up, it's your meeting, it's your business meeting, so.
Yeah, I leave on night shift that week, so I will have to skip work or. Yeah, so early would be better for me.
Good with her,
I'm retired, doesn't matter.
I don't work on Wednesdays.
Okay.
It's okay, you gotta go move it up.
I could see moving it up a couple hours. Have a dinner break and
Doesn't
then
have
keep
to.
going.
Start at
4 o'clock?
4.
4 o'clock? Is that all right with you guys?
Is the borough office still open at that time?
We are, but close right then, so you're good to go.
So we can show before and snack.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Show before email.
Since the volume of applications we'll be going through is significantly higher than previous years or about the same.
That's a good question. I haven't looked, I just have the bottom line or the number in my head. So I don't know if it's, I think it's gonna be a bigger meeting because we have new programs. that we're-
Yeah, we got.
Maintenance, road
New
improvement.
rubric.
So those are two big ones. Yeah, and some new applicants, at least one. that I can think of.
Give this one whole new entity.
Understanding a move up doesn't have the applicants who may want.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, right. True.
But I think, it's one meeting, and this is a big one and an important one, so I think.
I mean, should we make it at 5 then?
Let's make it 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, that is a Wednesday
Yeah.
Yeah,
with the reminder. With 5 o'clock and bold.
reminder.
Oh, man.
I'll try to remember to remind you.
And then finance committee, thank you for your service. That is Wednesday, April 2nd.
Yeah.
6 P M at the borough office.
Yep.
And then a regular April meeting shortly after on the 9th. Again, back at the Denver borough office. With that, we're gonna entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn. Cool. Good one, guys. No opposition. Yeah, thank you.
What was that?
Yeah.
She works at the park, she's,